not to get into a lot of the political issues about it. In a way, what they end up doing is they want to ensure that they have prisoners, that way they can make money, otherwise their corporation is not successful because there is no money streaming and if there aren't any prisoners. So what that ended up doing is them creating a lot of legislation that required longer sentences, or after you commit 3 crimes, you end up spending the rest of your life in prison. So what the ACLU wanted to do was to compile a report talking about the major contributors to such an industry and the benefit, or not the benefits, the factors that would make it not as beneficial to society as one would think, because typically when government outsources things, it is best for society in certain cases. So that was one of the biggest things I did. I was working with an attorney and my supervisor, and we would summarize reports from other nonprofits as well. And other things that I worked on was we had law clerks in the office who would do most of the legal work, but when they would get a lot of work for them and they didn't have enough, it was only 7 attorneys in the office, so very limited resources for a legal firm. And what they would do is if they became burdened with the work, they'd outsource it to the interns as well. So I had an opportunity to kind of figure out the legal workings and how memos work. We never actually went to court because a lot of what the ACLU argues is on a federal level, so they'd actually travel to the states and argue in those states and not do any of their arguments in DC. So it's kind of like what my internship entailed. Prisoner mail tended to be busy work. If there was nothing going on, that's kind of what we did. But it was really interesting in the sense that going in, I wasn't that, I knew that the criminal justice system had a lot of issues going on with it, but it wasn't something that I was quite aware of. And kind of going off of what everybody else was talking about, the experience you get from learning all these practical information and what's going on out there and actually experiencing it as an individual and going through it and actually hearing other people's stories or reading about them and getting that opportunity to interact. The highlights of my summer were mostly getting the opportunity to sit down at lunch with the attorneys and hear what they had to say about their life experiences, and even attending congressional briefings and meeting other nonprofits and talking to them about what makes them very passionate and why they're choosing this field of work. So the work was very enlightening, but I think it was mostly the people interactions that I got out of it and learning from them and from their experiences.
Thank you all very much. I thought it was fascinating. And yes, please. And as you can hear, they were in a range of places, governmental units, nonprofits, and different places. So there's a whole variety of topics and perhaps questions. So the idea is to have a conversation about internships, their experiences, or issues. Yes.
I'm just curious what everyone's major is, or kind of, that sort of direction.
I'm international studies, so, and then I have a minor in Zulu, which is an African language, but I've had a few different internships, so I think that I've learned that you don't have to have an internship that directly applies, and I think Anne would probably say that actually what your major is, that there's the hands-on skills, like when Liz mentioned the media hits book, I've done that before, but I wouldn't have ever thought I needed to do that in my major, but it's definitely something I could see needing in a lot of jobs. So.
I'm an environmental management major. And I worked for an environmental organization, but I wound up not really doing much environmental work, really. I actually do most of the urban planning more oriented work. It actually made me kind of want to do urban planning in the future, despite the fact that wasn't even what I was intending to do. So it's kind of the same with a lot of people like that.
I'm political science and French, and despite choosing that major, knowing I was going to be a poli-sci major even before I got to college, I had never worked directly in politics until I did this summer, and it was definitely a push out of my comfort zone. And as much as I really enjoyed it, I think it kind of taught me that I'm not certain that I'm passionate enough about politics to make it my life. So as much as fun as it was, I think it's helped me kind of figure out where my next internship might take me and just kind of where my future will lead if I choose to go to law school like I'm planning right now. So.
I'm communication and culture, and I'm minoring in history. Like I said earlier, I was really lucky because my internship honestly really balanced both PACE and CMCL. I really got hands-on experience for both of my academic But I think everyone would agree that I think the best internship you're gonna find is the one that just gives you a lot of responsibility no matter what it's covering, or, you know, Hannah's was out of her academic interest entirely, and the best internship is gonna be the one that gets you out there where you're not like pushing buttons or serving coffee. And I know a lot of people who do have internships that are just like that, or internships for like Mayor Ballard, interns I met for him did a lot of busy work. And that's a valuable experience too. I'm not demeaning that at all, but I think the best experiences are when you're supposed to use all of your different interests and apply them however you can to every unique experience.
I'm poli-sci with SPE and history, so definitely something where financial experience makes me look a bit more legitimate. So,
I'm political science and philosophy, and kind of echoing everything that everyone was saying up here. Getting an internship, actually, what happened with me was I've always wanted to go to law school, but working with the ACLU, which is also like a dream job of mine, kind of made me question more of how, you know, whether I really want to do law school or not, whether I want to go a different path. But getting a lot of other experience as well. I mean, internships are great, but so are, you know, getting involved with other organizations on different levels as well.
What years are you at IU? So when did you decide to do your internship?
I'm a senior.
I guess
yeah,
just kind of
I'm a
rolling through
senior. I did mine last spring, which if you plan your schedule where you have like a little bit of extra room, I actually ended up doing a 6-credit-hour internship instead of a 3. So then I was able to be there really kind of like an almost full-time employee, kind of made things a little bit richer.
First one was what year are we in?
What year?
Great. I'm a senior, but I will actually be a second-year senior next year. So I'm actually going to be doing another internship this coming summer. I'm not sure what yet. So I'll end up doing that. But I mean, I think doing internships at a year is really great. I mean, if you do one after your freshman, I mean, if you do, the more you can do, honestly, the better. I mean, not that you should cram them in, but it really is like, I mean, the more you do, the more variety you can get. So I think really, as soon as you can do them, just in general, is always good.
I'm a junior now. I did it this past summer, and similar to everyone else, I'm going to be looking for another internship this coming summer. So.
I'm a junior also, and I did it the summer before this year.
I'm a senior, but I did it last semester, but my first one was the summer after my sophomore year.
I'm a sophomore, so I did mine the summer after my freshman year.
One thing I noticed when I'm talking with all of you is that you are planning to do more. You know, almost everyone I talked with plans more than one internship, because you do one and they say, well, okay, so I learned this, but I also learned that I don't like this, so I'm going to try something else. And trying all those things is so beneficial, because what you end up doing may not be created yet. Certainly this job that I'm doing now was not created before 3 years ago. So I had no idea when I was training that this is what I would be doing, but I was preparing for it all along. So everything that you have done prepares you for something which you don't know yet is coming.
People mentioned before about the interaction, and that really was a big part of it too. And just the more you do, I mean, the more interactions you get. I know, like my boss, I mean, that one of the biggest things of my internship that I loved was just my boss. And just talking to her about like her experiences. I mean, she was a campaigning manager for like dozens of aldermen in Chicago. She was the campaign manager for the first Black mayor of Chicago. She was a school teacher. She was, I mean, she's done literally everything. And it's cool to like talk to people who were like successful and see like how they got there. She has a biology degree and wound up being a campaign manager who went on to be a policy person. I mean, so it's really crazy. And you know, she's known Obama for like 25 years, that kind of thing. Like, it's cool to like to have those connections, like meet people who like who, you know all sorts of people and who've had just the craziest experiences.
Yeah. Okay. And also,
Sorry.
I know for me, especially going from freshman year to junior year, and you know, we're kind of in this academic bubble when we're here, and we think I'm going to have this major, which means I have all of these careers listed for me that I can go to after graduation, or I can do law school or grad school, and it seems very calculated and in a way kind of predetermined. And I know that used to stress me out all the time. And for me, I mean, I it's likely I won't ever work in the Parks Department. But in terms of a mentoring standpoint, it was really valuable just to talk to my 2 female supervisors and kind of learn that they came from similar interests as me, and I would never have considered like, oh, I'll be a PIO for the Parks Department. So I mean, I guess for me it was just valuable because it made me feel less limited and more in control of where I'm going to end up and my ability to kind of do anything.
I was just going to say, along with what everyone else said, I think the interactions I had with my candidates were totally the most valuable part of my internship. Most of the time when I would think of, being a politician in the future, I just thought that would be my career. Like a congressman, that's what you do. You're a politician. But the city county councilors all have full-time jobs. That's by no means are they at the city county building all the time. I had one who was a solo practitioner attorney. I had one woman who was retired and a guy who was a police specialist, and they all kind of had different experiences that helped them when they were making their decisions as city county councilors. And I was just really impressed that they could keep up with both aspects of their lives, and I think that kind of taught me that if I really want to get engaged with my community, that I can do that, but I can still have a career. I don't have to choose one or the other.
One thing I was going to say about planning when you do your internship, I did one, after my freshman year of college, and then I did one each year. And this last summer, I actually was the first summer I haven't done an internship, and I ended up doing a readings course with Mike. But it was really beneficial for me to be able to slow down a little bit and study for the LSAT and work on my applications for part of the summer. And then I feel like my best friend, she and I are very much alike, and she did hers kind of flip-flop, that she sped up towards the end instead of, she was a little bit slower at first. And she's having a hard time making time to write down what she's done, like to even be able to articulate, like, this is how good of a person she is. So just planning wise, it's been nice to step back. And also with the readings course, I mean, every single time I read, I take one of my internships into that reading. Like there's a different lens of how I look